اعمل جاي كلمات كله يا كلمة.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم. من يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أحييكم بتحية الإسلام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن ينور هذه الوجوه الطيبة في هذه الليلة المباركة، ليلة الأحد، التي فيها سنبدأ الدروس في تفسير كتاب الله عز وجل. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His mercy and blessings upon this gathering. It's a blessed night. It's the first lecture from a series of lectures in which we will be discussing and learning more about the guidance contained in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what a better thing to do than to gather in the houses of Allah, gather on the ma'dubah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ma'idah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, than gathering together upon learning more about the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, مَجْتَمَعْ قَوْمٌ فِي بَيْتٍ مِّن بِيُوتِ اللَّهِ وَيَتْلُونَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَيَتَدَارَسُونَهُ فِيمَا بَيْنَهُمْ إِلَّا نَزَلَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّكِينَةُ وَغَشِّيَتْهُمُ الرَّحْمَةُ وَحَفَّتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَذَكَرَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَنْ عِندَهُ. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us about the virtues and merits of coming to the house of Allah and learning about the book of Allah and studying the verses in the Quran and researching and learning more about the tafseer of the book of Allah. He says there is not a people who come into the house of Allah and they recite the Quran to each other and they learn the Quran with each other, except that they will receive four things. The first thing is that they will be overwhelmed with tranquility and calmness and peace. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will descend tranquility and peace upon the hearts and the souls and the minds and the bodies. And they will also be overwhelmed with mercy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will descend mercy upon us. And the angels will come and hover in these gatherings and attend these gatherings. And the most best blessing of all is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will mention our names in the heavens. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who attain this great reward and this great benefit. Brothers, we are going to embark upon a journey, a long journey, in which the path is very strenuous, the path is very enlightening. The path, once you start treading on the path of this, learning the noble knowledge of the Quran, learning how to understand the Quran, learning what's the difference between a Meccan surah and a Madani surah, what's the difference between the surahs revealed when the Prophet was traveling or when he was in residence. We're going to learn about which verses are abrogated, which verses were abrogators. We're going to learn so many things about the Quran, so it may be overwhelming to some, but for those who are thirsty and want to quench their thirst and hunger of learning more about the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's nothing more delicious and nothing more pleasing to the soul than to learn more about the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrates from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says ما من الأنبياء نبي إلا أعطي من الآيات ما مثله أؤمن أو آمن عليه بشر وإنما كان الذي أوتيت وحيا أوحاه الله إلي فأرجو أني أكثرهم تابعا يوم القيامة. Abu Hurairah, he narrates a beautiful hadith from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he says that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us there was no prophet from amongst all the prophets and messengers that Allah sent, but they were given miracles. Every single prophet that Allah sent was giving miracles, because of which people had security or had belief. And the miracles that the prophets were sent with were miracles which the people and the nations that they were sent to were known to be the best of their nations in doing those certain things that they did. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, what was he was sent with? He was sent with revelation and divine inspiration. And he says that I hope that my followers will be more than those of any other followers and any other prophet on the day of resurrection. So this evening we're going to be embarking upon a journey upon one of the greatest miracles that ever was given to any prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this miracle, it is preserved in the hearts of millions of Muslims, preserved in the mind, preserved in the souls, preserved in the masajid, preserved in the Quran, the Sahih that we have on our shelves and in our homes. And this great miracle, and one of the Prophet's greatest miracles, was the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created human beings in the best of fashions. As Allah He says, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. That indeed I have created mankind in the best of forms and the best of fashions. And Allah, when He created us with what? With bodies and with souls. So our bodies, they need nourishment, they need nutrients to survive. And our souls need nourishment and nutrients to survive as well. Our bodies are nourished with food and water and many of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for us on the face of this earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it very easy for us to grow the nourishment that we need. If we want to grow plants or vegetation, all we have to do is take the seed and plant it. And then all we have to do is water it, and it will grow and grow and grow. So our bodies are nourished with the things that Allah has made subservient to us on the face of this earth. And it's easy for us to find the things to nourish our bodies. But what about our souls? What about our intellects and our hearts? How do we nourish them? What is the nutrients for our souls, and for our hearts, and for our intellects? Has Allah made it easy for us to find the nourishment for our souls? Of course. The nourishment for our souls is contained in this book of Allah. This nourishment will provide for you health and wealth, peace of mind, a removal of anxiety, depression, stress, and give you all of the things that you're looking for, all of the peace that you're looking for. But all we have to do is get closer to this book and read more about this book and learn more about the explanation of this book, how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ implemented this book, and how he taught this book to his companions. So this is what the journey we're going to be embarking upon, is learning more about the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah has made it easy for the souls to attain this nourishment, this spiritual nourishment. How? By sending us prophets, by sending us messengers with guidance and guidelines, guiding us to that which is correct and telling us to stay away from the things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows isn't good or isn't wholesome or isn't nourishing for the soul. And if a nation or people start to go astray, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always do? He always sent a prophet or always sent a messenger to those people to remind them, to tell them to come back to the correct way, come back to attain and acquire the nourishment for your soul, and come back to the correct guidance which is contained in the divine revelations. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send the prophets and messengers with miracles that prove the truthfulness of that messenger that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent, and the honesty of their messengership, and also to establish the proof upon those nations and those individuals whom those prophets and messengers were sent to. So it was from Allah's sunnah and Allah's ways that whenever He would send a messenger, He would send a messenger with a miracle that was similar to something that their nations and peoples were known or popular for, and that they mastered and they were exceptionally well in doing. Solely why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to show people how powerful He is, how mighty He is, and show that whatever the people themselves think that they are the best at, that they have mastered, that they are the most talented at, that it is easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to outdo them, and all He has to do is say be, and the thing happens. And another reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send the prophets with these miracles is because these were the strongest proofs. And the stronger the proofs and evidences are, the more certainty, yaqeen, and belief that people have in these prophets and the message that they're bringing. And also the stronger the challenge is, at-tahaddi, okay? The more likely people will be to believe in the thing which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is challenging the people with, and the people will bear witness to His greatness. So let's take, for example, if an old man who normally walks with a cane were to race a 25-year-old marathon runner, and they went into a competition. What would you think about this competition? You'd laugh at the competition. You'd say, how can this 25-year-old marathon runner race with a man who's crippled, he can only walk with a cane? You say this competition is a joke. But if you had two world-class, number one, first prize, gold medal Olympic runners, they competed in a competition, then you would say that the competition was worth watching, was something of value. So this is similar to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He revealed the biggest miracle to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Quran, that He what? That He revealed it, okay, to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and He made the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam bring it to the people, because the people, the Arabs of that time, they were known and they were the best people on the face of the earth in regards to their what? Their eloquence, their prose, their poetry, and they were the best of speakers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He revealed the Quran, He challenged the Arabs to do what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knew that He's going to reveal this greatest miracle to His final prophet and messenger. And He knew that the Arabs could not produce anything similar to what He was going to reveal to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. First, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He challenged them to produce a Quran similar, like what He was revealing to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Isra, He says, قُلْ لَإِنْ اجْتَمَعَتِ الْإِنسُ وَالْجِنُّ عَلَىٰ أَنْ يَأْتُوا بِمِثْلِ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لَا يَأْتُونَ بِمِثْلِهِ وَلَوْ كَانَ بَعْضُهُمْ لِبَعْضٍ ظَهِيرًا. He said, O Prophet Muhammad, say to the people that if all of the jinn and all of the humankind gathered together and joined together to produce something similar to this Quran, they would not be able to produce anything like it. And even if they tried to help each other in every single way that they could. So first Allah challenged them. He says, you guys are eloquent. You Arabs who are living in the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and bragging and boasting about your eloquence and your fine speech and prose and poetry, I challenge you to produce something similar to this book here, this Quran. And of course they couldn't do it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made it even easier for them. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, okay, I know you can't even produce a Quran similar to this. Produce 10, just 10 surahs. 10 surahs similar to that which is in the Quran. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Hud, أَمْ يَقُولُونَ افترى قُلْ فَأْتُوا بِعَشْرِ سُورٍ مِثْلِهِ مُفْتَرِيَاتٍ وَدْعُوا مَنْ اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Allah, He says, do they say that this Quran is something which is a lie, something which is made up, something which the Prophet Muhammad wrote or took from the scribes before him? He says, come with only 10 surahs, 10 chapters like this, and call everyone that you can, if you are truly truthful and are the people of honesty and are people of eloquence, and those who think they can challenge the linguistic and the guidance and all of the miracles and the guidance which is contained in the Quran. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made it even easier for them. He says, okay, you can't produce a whole Quran like this. You can't even produce 10 surahs like this. Produce one surah like this. Just one surah like this. And they still weren't able to do it, and they still won't be able to do it until the day of resurrection. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in what surah? In Surah Al-Baqarah, in verse number 23, Allah, He promises. He says, وَإِن كُنتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ فَإِن لَّمْ تَفْعَلُوا وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا فَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. He says, if you are in doubt about what we have revealed to our servant Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then produce even one surah like we have produced, and call all of your witnesses and all of your associates if you are truthful. And you will never be able to do it in the past, and you will never be able to do it in the future. So many verses in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us that He challenged those who were blessed with eloquence and blessed with speech and prose and poetry, and were the masters of eloquence of their time, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenged them, and they were never able to what? To respond or compete with the guidance and with the linguistic miracles contained in the Quran. So think about the miracles of Musa alayhi salam. Musa had many miracles, right? One of the miracles of Musa was that when he parted the Red Sea with his staff. What was another miracle of Musa? Okay? Allah sent Musa alayhi salam to Fir'aun and his people. The inhabitants who were living in Egypt at that time, they were well known for what? Well known for magic and well known for sorcery. Okay? But what magicians and sorcerers normally use are optical illusions. What sorcerers and magicians normally use, they are optical illusions. When they threw their staffs, it became as an illusion to the people as though they were turned into what? Serpents and snakes. So what happened? The magicians and the sorcerers, they tricked the people's eyes and minds, but they didn't really turn those sticks and those ropes into real snakes. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ سِحْرِهِمْ أَنَّهَا تَسْعَى. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِ? يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِ means that they imagined. They were delusional. These magicians and sorcerers created an illusion for them in their eyes that those ropes and those staffs actually changed into what? Changed into serpents and changed into snakes. But in all actuality, they didn't really transform. But when Musa alayhi salam, he threw his stick, what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, فَإِذَا هِيَ حَيَّةٌ تَسْعَى. And indeed, it is a true snake that slithers across the ground. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed Musa's staff into a snake, He didn't say that يُخَيَّلُ إِلَيْهِمْ. He didn't say that it is illusion to them, or they are thinking, or they are imagining that Musa turned the staff into a snake, because what Musa did was what? A miracle. And what the magicians and sorcerers did was what? Was an optical illusion. So no doubt magic is real, and the effects of magic is real as well. Okay? The effects of magic could affect one's eyes. Okay? Meaning that they could see something which is not what? Real. They might see something, think they saw a ghost, think they saw a jinn, think they saw a demon, think they saw somebody walking outside when they really didn't. They really saw the illusion where? In their eyes, not in reality. Or magic can also affect the hearts. For example, if somebody, so the effects of magic are real. Okay, the effects of magic are real, but the things that it has effects on are not reality. They are things which what? Which make you not see reality in a real way. Same thing that magicians can do to your hearts. They can cause one to dislike their spouse. So the effects of magic are real. Okay, the effects of magic are real. So Musa's miracle was from the type of things that the people from his nation were well known for. What were they well known for? Magic and sorcery. So this is why the first ones to create the miracle of Musa were the magicians themselves. When after Musa changed his staff into a snake, who were the first ones to submit? Who were the first ones to accept Islam? Fir'aun or the magicians? Magicians. Why? Because they knew that what Musa did was not magic. It wasn't an optical illusion, that it was something real. That only the Lord of Musa alayhi salam could have done or could have the power to do. Let's look at the other miracles of the prophets, such as Isa alayhi salam. In the time of Isa, what was the occupation or the professions and the things that the people mastered and were very talented in doing? Medicine. They were known for healing people. And we know that medicine and doctors, all they can do is heal the body or provide medicine or diagnose the body as long as the soul still remains in the body. But once the soul exits the body, medicine or doctors cannot benefit you at all. So Isa, alayhi salam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him with his miracle, what did he do? Isa, he started healing people who had leprosy, which none of the other doctors or none of the other medicine that was available at the time could do. What else did Isa do? What else did Isa do? One of his biggest miracles. Because we know that a doctor, once the soul leaves the body, they cannot return the soul back into the body or bring someone back to life. But what did Isa alayhi salam do? As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about him in Surah Ali Imran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, أَنِّي قَدْ جِئْتُكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Indeed, I have come with clear signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَنِّي أَخْلُقُ لَكُم مِّنَ الطِّينِ كَهَيْئَةِ الطَّيْرِ. That I will now create from you, from clay, I will create a bird in front of your eyes from clay. I will take some clay and mold it into the shape of a bird. فَأَنفُخُ فِيهِ. Then I will what? Then I will blow into it. فَيَكُونُ طَيْرًا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And it will be a real bird by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأُبْرِئُ الْأَكْمَى وَأَبْرَصَ وَأُحْيِيَ الْمَوْتَى. And I also cure the one who has what? Leprosy. And I also cure the one who has what? Who's blind. So he can cure the blind and cure the one who has leprosy. And I can also what? وَأُحْيِيَ الْمَوْتَى. And I can also what? Resurrect the one who was dead. بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And by the sake and the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So any of the miracles that the prophets did, they did it through what? Through the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the miracles that they were sent with were in relation to the things that their nations and their peoples were known to master and known to be very talented in doing. What else was Isa blessed to do? وَأُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا تَأْكُلُونَ وَمَا تَدَّخِرُونَ فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ. And I can also tell you about all of the things you have in your house, everything you're eating in your house, and what you save in your house. So all of this was from the miracles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So his miracles was from the type of talents that the people of his time had mastered, had specialized in. And if they weren't able to do what he did, then they are even more incapable of doing other things. So same thing with the rest of the prophets. If the Arabs are not even able to produce one surah, one ayah, similar to the Quran, then they are definitely not able to do anything else like the Prophet Muhammad did, or like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed the Prophet Muhammad did. So, the reason why we're discussing these things before we go into the Quran is so that we realize and understand that we have a miracle. The Prophet Muhammad's greatest miracle before our hands. This, no doubt, the scholars will agree that this is the greatest miracle that the Prophet Muhammad has ever received. So, in order for us to understand the Quran properly, understand its tafseer, we need to put ourselves back 1453 years, 1440 years, as if we're actually living with the Prophet Muhammad in Mecca. We're actually experiencing what the Prophet Muhammad was experiencing in Mecca, in Medina, in Taif, when he was being troubled and tortured and called a crazy man, called a madman by his own tribesmen. The Arabs before Islam, what were the Arabs known for before Islam? Anybody who reads the history, the pre-Islamic history, okay, the Arabs before the time of the Prophet Muhammad they were not known to have any political structure, no economic structure, no social structure at all. Okay? In contrary to the surrounding areas that were surrounding them, such as what? Such as Persia, right? Kisra, such as Rome, right? Who was in Rome? Caesar, right? Who was in Egypt? Right? Muqawqas, right? Muqawqas was in Rome or in Egypt? Right? So Egypt, Persia, Rome, they all had big empires. They all had political structure. They all had economic structure. And they all had a social structure. But the Arabs in Hijaz, where the Prophet Muhammad lived, they didn't have anything. What were they? They were tribes. They had no unified leader. They had no governor. They were tribes. So the chief of each tribe, he would be the leader of his own little neighborhood or own little area. Okay? When you compare the situation of Hijaz, where the Prophet Muhammad received this revelation, to the surrounding areas, Egypt, from the economic aspect, Egypt, they have the Nile River, right? They have lots of vegetation, lots of importing and exporting. People coming from Rome, through Alexandria, down the Nile River, people coming up from Sudan, up from Africa, bringing all of these goods. People would go to Egypt. They say that Egypt, back in the day and even now, it can supply probably the whole eastern side of the world with enough food, with enough vegetation, if it was managed properly. So Egypt, Rome, Persia, they all had their what? They all had their economic finances, they all had their economic economy. They had economy. But in Hijaz, no. They had no structure. Their economy was what? Tijara. Tijara what? Allah, He talks about it in what surah? Quraysh. Who can read to us Surah Quraysh? لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف. So a lot of the Arabs who were living in Hijaz, their economy and their earnings and their living depended upon what? One of three things. Either one, they were farmers, But if you think about Hijaz, it's all desert and mountains. What would they farm? Dates. Not too much to grow in the desert. They were shepherds, okay? Herding cattle, sheep, goats, lambs, things like this, okay? But nothing else really too much. No fruits, no vegetables, potatoes, things like this. Everything else was what? Imported from the surrounding areas in which they lived. Some of them were merchants. Where would they go? In the winter they would go south to what? To Yemen. And in the summer they would go north to where? To Sham, to Syria. Okay? So the Arabs of Hijaz prior to Islam, okay, they had no economic structure, no social structure, and no what? And no political structure. And the social structure, as I said, they were known to be tribes, Qaba'il. Right? Bani Hashim, Bani Adi, Bani Qurayza, Bani Nadir, all of these different tribes. So what would tribes do? It was survival of the fittest. And the tribes would move and migrate to the areas in which they would find what? Vegetation. If they were shepherds, they would migrate to areas, they would look at the clouds and follow the rain clouds and say, okay, well, it's going to rain there in a couple days. We're going to pitch our tent here, and we're going to let our camels graze here, let our sheep, let our goats graze here. If they came across another tribe, which they saw was weaker than them, what would they do? Take everything. They would invade. Take their women, take their kids, make slaves out of their women, make slaves out of their kids. Okay, so slavery was something which has been going on since the beginning of time. Okay? It wasn't specific for a certain race or certain people. It happens through war. It happens through conquerors and conquests and things like this. So they were known to oppress women. They were known to oppress the orphans. This is all prior to Islam. Okay? So basically, you could say that they kind of lived a what kind of life? A barbaric type of life, right? A barbaric type of life. So this is what we need to what? Conceptualize and imagine what was the situation in Hijaz before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam started receiving the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So think about it. If they had no political structure, no economic structure, no social structure, what did they busy themselves with? What did they do? What did they do? If they didn't have, they didn't have a regular, 9-to-5 job where they're going out, all of their sustenance would either depend upon the summer trip or the winter trip, or if there was vegetation, right, they would bring their animals there, or if they found another tribe, they would invade the tribe and things like this. But they didn't have 9-to-5 jobs like us, so what would they spend their time doing? Poetry. They would spend their time meeting in the marketplaces, conversating, talking, meeting in people's houses, going to the little neighborhood where they have their tents set up, talking about their animals. So they would spend a lot of their time doing what? Conversing, conversating, poetry, okay? Until they would even have battles, okay? Like people have rap battles now, right? Two rappers, they get together and they battle each other and things like this. The Arabs, they used to have poetry battles. One tribe, okay, would battle another tribe. They would be bragging about their tribe and bragging about their forefathers and bragging about how beautiful their women are and bragging about how wealthy they are and things like this. And even if they were lying, the members of the tribe, they would still say that, okay, well, what he's saying is right. Yeah, we're from that tribe. They would lift up their heads and it would make them feel good. So the point I want to get at is that the kalima amongst the Arabs, okay, the word, the spoken word amongst the Arabs had a lot of weight in the community. Okay? One word can cause a war. One word can cause, can bring two tribes together that have been fighting for years. One word can make somebody very mad at you. So the words amongst the Arabs in Hijaz, before the time of the revelation of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, held a lot of weight. It meant a lot. It held a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, a lot of emotions, and a lot of feelings. Okay? So the spoken word, it meant a lot. So conceptualizing all of this in the situation in Hijaz, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted good for the Muslims and good for the Ummah, what did He do? He sent the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to extract those Arabs, first of all, and all of mankind. But first the Prophet was sent to who? He was sent to his people, but he was also sent to all of mankind. So he was first sent to remove all of those social ills and rectify the political, the economic, the social situation, the religious situation in Hijaz, first and foremost. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent with the biggest miracle. Okay? So the Quran, it came in line with the other miracles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to the previous prophets. The Arabs, they were known for their eloquence, they were known for their fine speech, the poetry. They were known to be those who, if you told them something, they would memorize it right away, they wouldn't forget it. Okay, they even used to have, when people would come and they would migrate to Mecca before Islam, and they would worship the idols that were inside the Kaaba, they would also have the leaders of the tribes and some of the chieftains of the tribe, they would stand on the door to the Kaaba. The door of the Kaaba used to have two doors, one to go in, one to go out. So they would stand on the stairs and they would recite their poetry. And sometimes whatever tribe won, they would hang their poetry where? On the Kaaba. They would hang their poetry on the Kaaba, so anybody who came to make pilgrimage to Mecca, this was prior to Islam, to worship the idols and pay homage to these idols, they would read the poetry and memorize the poetry and then bring it back to their people. And this is how the Arabic prose and the poetry spread amongst many of the people. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that the Arabs, they were known for their eloquence, He sent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the biggest and greatest miracle. With what? With the Quran. Okay? And all of its linguistic perfection and completeness and all of its guidance. Okay? And He knew that no matter how eloquent those Arabs were, they could never produce something which is similar to the eloquence and the guidance contained in the Quran. So, in the beginning of Islam in Mecca, when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, his message in the beginning was what? Was it secret or was it private? Or was it, was it private or was it public? It was private. So he only shared the revelation he was receiving with his close companions. Like who? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Ali ibn Abi Talib, his wife Khadija, Zayd ibn Haritha, who else? Okay? A small few. A small few. Ammar ibn Yasir, right? The sister of Umar ibn al-Khattab, okay, Sa'id ibn Zayd, Uthman ibn Affan, who accepted Islam through who? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. So, it was only being shared amongst, okay, a small group from amongst the close companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But those who were against the Prophet and against his revelation, such as who? Who was against the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu at the beginning? When they started hearing about some verses which were being recited, what was happening? Who were some of the people who were trying to prevent the pilgrims who were coming to worship these idols from hearing the Quran? One of the biggest ones. Allah has a whole surah about him in the Quran. Surah Al-Masad. Who's that? Abu Lahab. Right? تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب ما أغنى عنه ماله وما كسب سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب في جيدها حبل من مسد. So Abu Lahab, who was actually one of the relatives of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he didn't want people to what? To hear the Quran, because he knew if they hear this Quran, it's gonna open their hearts, it's gonna open their minds. They're gonna stop worshiping these idols and things like this. So this is why one of the main reasons in the beginning why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was receiving so much enmity and hatred from his what? From even his own tribesmen. Why? Because they were worried about what? Money. Each tribe had their own what? Idol. Each tribe had their own idol. So now if they let the message of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ spread, what's going to happen? They're going to remove the idols and then the income and the sustenance that a lot of these tribal members were depending upon is going to be what? Going to be removed. So that's why many of them were hesitant into letting the Quran be shared and letting the Quran spread, and this is why they tried to tarnish the Prophet Muhammad's reputation in the beginning, after they had already witnessed to his what? His truthfulness and his honesty. What was the Prophet Muhammad known as before Islam? Sadiq al-Amin. Why did Khadija radiallahu anha marry the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because she knew that through her business transactions with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was a man who was trustworthy, he was a man who was honest, he was a man who would never lie. And he was known as that from amongst the people who were living in Mecca. But why did the people all of a sudden flip? Because they knew that if this Quran spreads, and it enters in your heart, and enters into your soul, and enters into your intellect, that it can change everything that you've been doing for hundreds of years. It will change your beliefs that you and your forefathers and grandfathers have had for hundreds of years. It can change the bigotry that you have to certain idols, to certain people, to certain inclinations and things like this. So this is why Kuffar of Mecca and the Kuffar of specifically Quraysh, polytheists, they didn't want the message of the Quran to be heard. They wanted to stop the people from listening to the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us about this in Surah Al-Fussilat, verse number 26. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَا تَسْمَعُوا لِهَذَا الْقُرْآنِ وَالْغَوْا فِيهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَغْلِبُونَ. And those who disbelieved, they said, do not listen to this Quran. Try to distract yourself when you hear the Quran being recited. Right? Engage yourself in something else when the Quran is being recited, so that you do not become what? Overwhelmed or overcome, or so that you do not become affected with this Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knew that the Quran had an effect on these people's hearts. And this is why He said that here in Surah Al-Fussilat. But what was the thing that stopped or inhibited or prevented those Kuffar Quraysh in Mecca from actually letting the Quran have an effect on them? Arrogance and what? Stubbornness. Arrogance and stubbornness. If somebody is arrogant or if somebody is stubborn, then it's going to be very difficult for the guidance of the Quran to affect and enter someone's heart and enter someone's soul. So, keeping this in mind, brothers in Islam, okay, this was the case with many of the people who were in Mecca at the time of the revelation of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So, as I said, we're going to be embarking, inshallah, throughout the Quran, which is can't be compared to anything on the face of this earth, but it is that which the more you read it, the more you extract benefits from it. The more you recite it, the more your tongue loves to be moistened with the words and with the verses in the Noble Quran. So one thing that we want to get into is many things that we need to touch on before we actually go in to opening up the different surahs and the different verses in the Quran. One thing we have to realize that this book is what? What is the whole point of this lecture this evening? To realize that the Quran al-Kareem is what? The mu'jiza. The biggest mu'jiza of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the best mu'jiza that has ever been sent to any of the prophets or messengers who have ever touched the face of this earth. So what are some of the virtues and the merits of studying the Quran and learning the Quran and learning the Tafseer of the Quran? We're doing this to encourage us to keep coming to these lectures, to keep coming and learning more, so we can taste some of the ladha of extracting some of the benefits that we're going to learn from the surahs and learn from the verses in Quran. One of the benefits that we get from studying the Quran, as we mentioned in the beginning, is what? Is that we find tranquility and peace in our hearts and in our minds and in our souls. And mercy is descended upon us. What are some other benefits of studying the Quran, learning the Quran, and learning the tafseer of the Quran? We're actually keeping the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ alive and the companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ alive. What else? For every word we recite, when we recite the Quran, each letter we receive how many hasanat from Allah? 10 hasanat. Okay? We're studying the best thing that we could study out of all of the branches and sciences in Islam: hadith, fiqh, tarikh, history, Arabic language, creed. The Quran is the best of all of them. Why? Sharaf al-ilm bi sharaf al-ma'lum. Because the nobility of a certain knowledge that you are going to study is based upon the nobility of the one from where it comes from. So the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is contained what? In the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the things that proves that the Quran is so great and so magnificent, not only that we know that it's a great miracle, another thing is we have the Quran, which is called with many different names. And in the Arabic language, كثرة الأسماء لشيء تدل على شرف المسمى. Anytime you have an Arabic word which has many synonyms for it, then this shows that that thing is great in the eyes of those people who understand the Quran and understand the Arabic language. So for example, the word Quran. How many different synonyms do we have for the word Quran when we open up the book of Allah? How many words are there for the Quran other than the Quran? Who can tell us? Number one, Al-Quran. إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ. Indeed, it is a very noble and generous book. What are some other names that Allah calls the Quran in the Quran? Huh? Al-Dhikr. Right? Allah, He calls the Quran what? Al-Dhikr. Let's just finish this. Allah, He also calls it what? Al-Furqan, a whole surah. He calls the book of Allah what? Al-Furqan. What is another one? Al-Kitab. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. That is the book that contains no doubt in it. What is another one? An-Nur. Light. So all of these names for the Quran. Number one, it's what? The book. Number one is the Quran, something which should be recited all the time. It's the Furqan. What is the Furqan? That which distinguishes between truth and falsehood. That which distinguishes between light and darkness. It's also called what? A-dhikr. A-dhikr, the remembrance. That which you should constantly remember in your hearts and remember upon your tongues. And it's also called what? An-Nur. An-Nur, right? The wise book. But it's also called what? An-Nur, light. Light which will be light for you in this world, and also what? Light for you in the hereafter. So what are some characteristics of the Quran? We have names of the Quran, then we have sifat of the Quran. What are some attributes of the Quran? The Quran is what? In Baqarah. Right? In second verse of Surah Al-Baqarah. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ
هُدًى
لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Guidance. It is a book of guidance. Absolute guidance. There's no better book on the face of this earth that has the guidance for everything that you're looking for. Science, politics, history, economics, everything, any type of guidance you're looking for is contained where? In the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Either it gives you general principles that you can apply to every single aspect of your life, or it gives you specific teachings that you can apply in your life as well. What else is the Quran called? Al-Mubarak. وَهَذَا كِتَابٌ أَنزَلْنَاهُ مُبَارَكٌ. This is the book that we have revealed, and it contains an enormous amount of what? Of barakah. It is a blessed book. Al-Kareem. إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ. Alif Lam Ra. تِلْكَ آيَاتُ الْكِتَابِ الْحَكِيمِ. This is the book which is what? Contains, this is the wise book. which contains all of the wisdom. Okay? إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلٌ فَصْلٌ. Indeed, it is the book which contains decisive, clear-cut speech, which is clearly understood. So, as I said, the wisdom from the Quran being called with all of these names and having all of these attributes is to show that the Quran is great, it is magnificent, and it is a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So before we start calling the adhan, we're going to end with a question, and then maybe between the adhan and the iqamah we can take a couple questions. But what was the main reason as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent that miracle of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is this Quran a book of miracles? What is the main reason as to why Allah sent this book? To prove to us that the miracles, the scientific miracles in the Quran, or to prove to us the linguistic perfection and completeness in the Quran, or to teach us stories from the previous nations? What was the main reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this book to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Huh? Hudan lil-alamin. Right? As Allah says, right? Hudan lil-nas. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس. The month of Ramadan in which we have revealed the Quran, it is what? Guidance for all of mankind. This is the main reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the book of Allah. Yes, it's a miracle, and its miracles are in many aspects, in many forms, but the main reason why Allah sent this book down is so that we what? Read it and we make it our companion in every situation in our life. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from the people of Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who love to read the Quran, love to learn more about the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the Quran our best companion, our closest companion, closer than our wife, closer than our children, closer than anything here on the face of this earth, because we know that this book is that which will give us peace, that which will give us tranquility, that which will unify our hearts and unify our souls and constantly keep us connected to Allah Azza wa Jalla. So, Jazakallah khair, barakallahu feek. Inshallah, we'll continue with a couple questions and answers, inshallah, maybe 5 minutes, inshallah, after the adhan, inshallah, and after salah, inshallah, we can have refreshments and everything, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, barakallahu feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.